I was saying this, thank you for your patience. Now, I was saying this, that it is always good to ensure that you do those assignments that you're given on the portal, because some of the final the activities, for example, when you talk about the quizzes, they're going to be graded, and this one will affect your final marks. So kindly be very careful when you're doing those assignments, and always put your best. Put your best. I'm telling you that I'm doing what we call, I'm grading those assignments. The only problem is that I've not been able to unleash. So I've not been able to put it in a way that you can see it from your end. But this one, I will do it towards the end of the semester, so that you can do simple mathematics or calculation of what you're going to get in your final grade. Remember, do them with the time that I allocate you, do them within that time. Because if you do it, if you call me after this, after 11, my friend, I cannot help you. Kama ulimiss, tafadhali tusisumbuane. You can imagine 10 of you or 15 of you telling me that they didn't do the assignments on time and they need a lot of, they need an additional time. That one will not work. So let's do things according to the time that we've been given, and that is it. So therefore, let me start our class. And before I start my class, maybe we can do a recap of what we did last week. Last week we looked at, we were talking about crisis. We were talking about crisis in an organization, how you can handle a crisis. And we said that crisis communication should be done by people who have done what, who have gone through the training. You should not be there, maybe there is a crisis and you want to talk to the media. No, leave it to those people who have gone through a training. And then we also looked at the process in case of crisis management or crisis, in case of a crisis in an organization. We also said that organization use a lot of money when it comes to ensuring that there is a positive corporate image. Therefore, we also say that crisis, when you talk about crisis tend to tarnish the image of the organization. So that is it. We also say that crisis comes from issues, and we said that issues are what? These are point of conflict between two or more people. Then today's class, we are going to start on a topic, and this topic is known as strategic public relations. Strategic public relations. Unless there is a question before I start, unless there is a concern before I start my class.
Yes. Is there any difference between crisis management and issue management?
When you talk about a crisis, we said that a crisis is, or when you talk about the issue, let me start with an issue. We said that an issue is simply something that you can deal with. These are things that can be dealt with before they graduate to become what we call crisis. Because crisis is a bigger picture of an issue. Na tukasema ya kwamba usipoziba ufa utajenga ukuta. So there are some issues that you can see as a PR officer in an organization, which you need to deal with. Like for example, poor working environment, poor employee working environment. You need to work on that, because if you don't deal with that issue, this might lead to something big. Like for example, these people might go on strike. And you know, when they go on strike, they are portraying the organization in a very negative way. So an issue is a point of conflict that if you don't deal with it, it graduates and becomes a crisis. So I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Any other thing that you need to know, or any question before I start my class? I need to start my class now.
No, thank you.
And now today, I want to look at a topic, and it is known as strategic perspective of PR. Strategic perspective of PR. And when you look at organizations, Organizations usually have strategies in everything. I've done PR up to strategic level, and I can comfortably tell you that in everything that you do as a PR officer, there is always a strategy. Like, for example, take for example, an issue to do with crisis. An issue to do with the crisis is when it comes to dealing with that crisis, there is a strategy that is followed. Another thing is that in case there is an issue, or meaning in case there is a crisis, maybe employees have gone on strike and there is communication that needs to be done to the leaders of the organization. You're going to realize that when you talk about publics of public relations, you use different strategies in communicating to them in case of a crisis. Like if you're talking to the media, you use a different strategy. When you're talking to the community, there is a different strategy. When you're talking to stakeholders, there is a different strategy. That's why we are saying that in everything that you do as a PR officer or in a particular organization, or as a communication officer in a particular organization, always follow those strategies. And those strategies are different. They are different completely. That's why today we are looking at strategic perspective of public relations. And in this chapter, we are going to look at what we call the concepts of strategy and the strategic management. Concepts of strategy and strategic management that can be applied in a PR context. So therefore, we ask ourselves, what is a strategy? There are various definitions. We have 6 definitions of strategy, but I'm going to look at approximately 3 of them, if not 4. So we start with definition number 1, and we are being told that strategy is a means of establishing organization purpose. Is a means of establishing an organization purpose. That is very true, because before you come up with a strategy, then you must have a purpose. You don't come up with a strategy without a purpose. For example, so we said that when you make noise in my class, I kick you out. And when I kick you out, the next time you'll be joining this class will be next week, a day like today. So here hakuna negotiation. So it goes without saying that whenever we start a class, the first thing that you do when you join a class is to switch off your microphone, unless you've been appointed to speak. Now we are looking at strategy, and we have looked at definition number 1, and we have said that strategy is a means of establishing organization's purpose. Yes, before you come up with a strategy, then you must have a purpose. Before you come up with a strategy, you must have a purpose. For example, as a student, maybe you want to have an A, or to get a distinction in this particular course, the course that you are doing. Then that is the purpose that you have. Then you have to come up with a strategy. You have to come up with a strategy and the means of which you're going to achieve your purpose. So therefore, even in organization, there are what we call purposes. Organization exists mostly to make profit and to retain customers, and to satisfy them. To satisfy them. So therefore, organizations have got purposes, and for these purposes, they usually have these purposes for the organization to achieve. Then they have to have different means or different strategies to achieve those purposes. That's why definition number 1, we are saying strategy is a means of establishing organization's purpose. We go to the next definition, which is definition number 2, and we are saying that strategy defines the competitive domain of the firm. It defines the competitive domain of the firm. In other words, the central concern of strategy is defining what? Defining the business, defining the business firm. forget about this. I think there is something wrong. Let's remove it and let's proceed to definition number 3. You can call it definition number 2. And we can say this, that strategy gives a response, or these are importances of strategy. Now we have defined strategy. We have said that strategy is a means of establishing organization's purpose. Now, what are some of the importance? Number 1, we can go back. Strategy defines the competitive domain of the firm. It defines the competitive domain of the firm. When you talk about the domain, we mean that through strategies, we can be able to know what the people that are going to, the competitors. For example, look at an organization like, say, for example, a health sector. Health sector, you're going to realize that we have got so many hospitals. We might have maybe the current hospital, we might have MP Shah, and so on and so forth. And these people, they know their competitors. And for you to beat your competitors, then you must know the moves that he or she is making. So therefore, when you talk about a strategy, strategy usually defines the competitive domain of the firm. You know your competitors, you know their weaknesses, and then because you know their weaknesses and their threats, you optimize on their threats and weaknesses. Also, you optimize on your strength. Then from there, we can say that strategy gives a response to external opportunities and threats. In fact, I think we've talked about threats. Strategy gives a response to external opportunities and threats and internal strengths and weaknesses that affect the organization. Every organization usually has got what we call opportunities. It has got what we call threats. It has got what we call weaknesses and strengths. So when you have a strategy working, or a good strategy in an organization, we will be able to know the threats that the organization is facing. We will be able to know the strength of an organization. We will be able to know the weaknesses of the organization. And we will all work towards ensuring that you minimize those threats or you minimize the weaknesses so that you can gain what is called a competitive advantage. Competitive advantage simply means that when you are compared with other organizations, you are better. You are better and you are more better than them. Then we look at point number 4. We are saying strategy is a central vehicle for achieving competitive advantage. It's a central vehicle for achieving competitive advantage. Yes, when you have good strategies, you will realize that, like for example, you're going to beat your competitors. You're going to thrive in this competitive world. You are going to find that things are moving smoothly because you have very good strategies. A very good example we can give is, maybe we can look at Safaricom, and we can look at their competitors, Airtel. And you can see clearly from the look of things and from look of things, you will see clearly that Safaricom has a very good competitive advantage compared to Airtel. That's why many customers are using Safaricom lines or Safaricom services as opposed to Airtel. So we can say that it is enjoying the competitive advantage. Then we have what we call strategy engages all hierarchical levels of the firm. Strategy engages all hierarchical levels of the firm. In other words, when you talk about an organization is an entity. An organization is, we are going to find that there are managers there, there are employees there, there are CEOs there, there are stakeholders there. There are so many people in an organization that works together to ensure that it meets its objective. Therefore, we are saying that for strategy to work, then all levels of management must cooperate. They all must cooperate. For example, look at an organization like, say, for example, a vehicle manufacturing company. For a vehicle to be manufactured, then there are so many people that are involved. You have to involve maybe the wholesalers, not the wholesalers, the people involved in bringing the raw materials. You have to involve the management. You have to involve the employees. You have to involve the suppliers. You have to involve all those people, even the consumers. And therefore you realize that for a strategy to work, then all people must come together. You remember we say that when people come together, things move very easily. You can be able to achieve the organizational goal. Then lastly, we are looking at point number 6, which is the importance of strategy. And we are saying that strategy is a motivating force. Strategy is a motivating force for the stakeholders who directly or indirectly receive the benefits or cost derived from action of the firm. Who is a shareholder? Who is a stakeholder? Who is a stakeholder? Can we have somebody explaining to us who is a stakeholder? So that we can be able to explain why strategy is a motivating force for the stakeholders.
Stakeholder is someone who has shares in a company.
What about a shareholder? You know, we have stakeholders and shareholders. What is the difference between the two? Salvinas, Masiro.
Okay, the stakeholder is someone who is, there are three, they could be the staff, that's a stakeholder. People who have some stock, I mean shares in the company, that could be, or the owners could be the stakeholders as well. So, and the general public, those are stakeholders. Then when we talk about the shareholders, then it means somebody who's bought some shares of the company and it's got a certificate with them, who has invested in the company. So that's the, you know, shareholder.
It's becoming confusing, eh? Can you repeat again? What did you say stakeholders are?
I said stakeholders are people who are employees of the company, can be stakeholders. Staff is a stakeholder. The public is a stakeholder. And the owners are stakeholders. And then when we talk about the shareholders, these are people who have invested in the company. They have either given capital in terms of investment, they've bought shares. So those are shareholders.
Yes, it's true. I hope everybody has understood. Unless there is a question, we can make it clear. Any question? So a stakeholder is a person who is directly related to the organization. In short, we can say that he's directly related to the organization. Like for example, we have the owners of the organization, we have directors of the organization, we have employees, we have what we call the wholesalers, the distributors. All those people are stakeholders. But when you talk about shareholders, shares simply mean that there is a portion. Like when you have a very big cake and it is your birthday party, what do you do with the cake? You share the cake and you celebrate your birthday. You share your cake. You give at least everybody a piece of the cake to taste it, or to have or to enjoy the cake or something like that, or to have it. Now, the same case with shareholders. That's why you hear companies go through what we call initial public offer. Initial public offer simply means that we are going to sell our shares to the public. You've heard people saying that I have some shares in Safaricom. I have some shares with maybe the Standard Chartered Bank, and so on and so forth. Now it means that you own a piece of that organization. So if you sell your share, then you are selling a piece of that organization to somebody else, or maybe to another company. That's how it is. So when you talk about a shareholder, everybody owns a certain piece of the organization. Allow me to use the word piece. So shareholders can be employees. It can be people external, or the public. Let me just call them the public, not publics of public relations, but the publics. It can be the community and so on and so forth. So that's the difference. Now, when you look at strategy, point number 6, we are saying it's a motivating force for the stakeholders, the people who are directly concerned, directly or who directly interact with the organization directly, not indirectly, but directly, who directly or indirectly receive the benefits or costs derived. For example, if an organization grows, it benefits much the people who owns the organization. It benefits much the employees. If an organization grows, you realize that even the employees in that organization grow with the organization. So therefore, we've been told that Chaffee identifies 3 distinct clusters of strategies, definition, or approaches to strategies. So we are going to look at approaches to strategies or perspective of strategy. And we are going to start with what we call the linear strategy. And when you talk about linear strategy is an approach. It's an approach that focuses on planning, such like goals and the means of achieving them. So when you talk about a linear strategy, we are talking about, for example, maybe this is a new organization. And this new organization, we want to create a very positive corporate image. So the work is to do what? To create a positive image of the organization. Therefore, that will be our specific strategy. That's why we are saying this approach focuses on planning on such goals, or on specific goals, and the means of achieving them. So you want to come up with a very positive, or to create a very positive image of the organization. Then that is your specific goal. What are you going to do? We also say that they are the results of strategic management. In linear strategies, leaders of the organization plan how they will deal with competitors to achieve their organizational goals. You look at your competitors, what have they done in terms of their corporate image? What have they done in terms of maybe getting or having what we call a competitive advantage, something like that. So linear approach emphasizes the planning aspects of strategy. So strategy in this particular linear, in this perspective, or in this approach, is seen as a form of methodological, directed, sequential planning, which contributes to rational decision-making. Rational decision-making simply means a balanced decision-making process with the overall aim of being, achieving a pre-tested focus. A pre-tested focus, for example, we have said we want to build the positive or the negative image that we have had as an organization. We want to make it positive. That is a pre-tested focus. We are focusing on something, and that is what we are dealing with, and that is what we will deal with. So linear strategy is simply directed towards a specific goal. Maybe the goal might be we want to have the competitive advantage. Competitive advantage simply means that when people look at the best service provider, they can point at your company. If people are talking about the best company to invest their shares on, they can talk of your company as compared to others. Just like we usually say, which is the best hospital? and you hear somebody telling you, if you want the best hospital is, for example, MP Shah, that's the best hospital. Why are they saying it's the best? Because it has a competitive advantage over other hospitals. When you hear somebody saying which is the best car manufacturer, you will hear people saying Toyota is the best. Why? Because it has got a competitive advantage. So people, before they look at others, they will look at the best. So that is what we mean by that. Maybe that is your strategy. You want to have a competitive advantage over your competitors. So you work towards that. So this view of strategy embraces the purposeful dimension of strategy. And in this linear model, it is based on a number of assumptions. That for you to work very well, for this linear model to work, then there are some assumptions that you have to put in place. Number one, you have to assume that the organization needs to be structured in a formal way. The organization needs to be structured in a formal way so that all directions made at the top can be implemented throughout the organization. For example, we have so many organizations, when decisions are made at the top, nothing is done. So therefore, and this one, you're going to realize that these are mostly the informal sectors or informal organizations because they are there. So for linear strategy to work, for you to achieve that particular goal, then the organization must be formed and must be structured in a way that when a decision is made from the top level management, then everybody takes it seriously. Otherwise, if it is in an informal way, then that one won't work. Then we say another assumption is we assume that for this linear perspective of strategic perspective to work, it is assumed that the organization are operating in a relative predictable environment, that you can predict what will happen in future, and exactly that is what will happen. For example, you want to achieve positive corporate image. You have to assume that the organization are operating in a relative predictable environment. You can predict what the environment will do to you. And therefore, so that when you are implementing this change, you have already insulated yourself against the environmental forces. That those forces govern. We have very many environmental forces. We have internal and external. Like government is one of the environmental forces. You cannot start a business without going through what we call the legal process. Hauwezi anza tu kampuni hivi hivi. Unataka kampuni ya kuanza kutengeneza mabati na kujenga nyumba. You cannot just go to the community and start and buy a piece of land and start the company there. The community, sometimes they come in. Like there are some companies that have been closed by the government. There are some companies that the community totally refuses. Utaanza kampuni hapa. Why? Because it has got what we call health hazards to the community, and so on and so forth. So you must assume that the organization are operating in a relative predictable environment. You can predict what will happen in future so that you insulate yourself from the external environment and the external forces. That's when the linear approach or the linear strategy model will work on you. Then you must also assume that managers are, in this approach, we assume that managers are assumed to act in a more or less rational manner. Rational simply means what? Let's look at the synonym: balanced, normal, or coherent. So we assume that managers are more or less balanced. They are working in a very balanced way, and they have access to the necessary information. Any information that they want, they get it, from which to base their decision. Any information that they are doing, they have to get it. We have to assume that these people, the managers, are making a sound decision so that we can provide them with information that they need. Remember, it's not everybody that can be trusted in an organization. In fact, the top management, you might have somebody who will be very happy when an organization goes down. and mostly is one of the top managers. So we assume that these managers are working towards achieving the goal with a clean heart. And if they need any information concerning the organization, you have to provide them with so that they can make a better decision. And we continue and we say that the realities of these assumptions of linear strategies have been challenged about whether managers do in fact act in an entirely rational manner in making strategic decisions. Because some managers will make decisions that are going even to do what? Decisions that are going to oppress the employees, decisions that are going to oppress even the other members. Remember, we are living in a very, 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 very difficult society, in a very funny society. When managers are given position and they are given an opportunity to maybe grow the organization, they take it as if they have been given an opportunity to benefit themselves. So unapata huyo mtu is very corrupt, is making decisions that are not rational, making the decisions that are going to benefit him and his family, but not the organization. So you have to assume that that manager is acting in a rational manner, and every information that he needs of the company, he has to be provided with. So you can see those assumptions. For linear model to work, you have to assume all these things. Otherwise, if you don't, it will never work. Any question? If there is no question, we go to the next model. Is it model or approach? Approach. And we are looking at adaptive. So in adaptive approach, in adaptive strategy or adaptive approach, it emphasizes on the importance of the strategy as a means by which organization seeks to respond to the changing nature of the environment. In this particular adaptive strategy, this is what we are saying, that the organization needs to be adaptive. You need to adapt yourself to the environment. You need to adapt yourself to what we call what is happening. For example, the environment is very unpredictable. Business environment is very unpredictable, completely. You cannot predict what will happen. Like, for example, we had the coronavirus, COVID-19, and so many businesses have closed down because of COVID-19. So many employees have gone home because of this particular pandemic. So you can see the environment is very unpredictable. And therefore, we are saying that in this particular strategy, the organization has to be adaptive to what is happening. And you have to come up with a specific purpose as to why your organization exists. You have to divide the market and satisfy a certain market. Successfully. So this idea of strategy as a means of matching an organization to its environment is a central theme of adaptive view of strategy. So we are saying that the organization, you have to adapt it to what it thrives best on. If an organization thrives best in manufacturing, maybe vehicle parts, then it should be like that. If it is a hotel industry, you are thriving best in selling food, kienyeji food, focus on that and make sure that you do it very well. Do not focus on maybe, for example, maybe you have tried on selling what we call not the food from the West, vitu chakula ya not za kienyeji, but hizi chakula zingine, chips, kuku, all those. But now you have realized that my business is not doing well. But when I focus on chakula ya kienyeji, I do a lot. I mean, I make a lot of profit. Then you need to adapt your business to the environment. Or maybe, for example, you are situated around Ruiru town or Murang'a town. And you know very well, these people, they don't like this food, the English food. Let me just call them the English food, the pizza and those things, but they like the local foods. Therefore, we are saying this: adapt yourself to that particular environment. Satisfy their requirement. Because some businesses don't do well because you have not done what is called research. So this view of strategy assumes that the environment is much more dynamic. It's very big. The environment is very big and less susceptible to prediction. You cannot predict what will happen in future than it is assumed, and as a result, the organization must change or adapt to the environment rather than attempts to impose a strategy on it. So you don't go to Murang'a town or Murang'a in the village, Ukodani, and you want to sell them or to start a hotel, and here you'll be selling Kentucky Fried Chicken. And these people, they are fond of their local food. My friend, you will not thrive. You have to act as what the environment is requiring you to act. For example, you can't go to Mombasa and you start selling to them blankets. Mombasa is a very hot place. But if you go there, you start selling them sandals, open shoes, vests, beach shorts, and so on and so forth. They will buy. But if you go there trying to sell leather jackets and so on and so forth, my friend, you will not thrive, because the environment itself, it does not allow. So don't impose strategies on the environment. So the adaptive model involves that the organization taking it into account, the environment taking it must put into account a number of external variables. So strategy making from this perspective also emphasizes the important role of actors in the process. So that is all about adaptive strategy. That as an organization, you adapt, not the other way around, not the environment to adapt to you. It is you to adapt to the environment for you to thrive. Like Safaricom, I'll give you an example. Last time we talked about Safaricom. When these phones started coming into Africa, specifically Kenya, it was in the year 2002. Yeah, 2002. And phones were very expensive. Buying a line from Safaricom, it was very expensive. I remember one of my friend bought a phone, and he bought it at around 30,000, a small phone. Acha sasa hizi zetu zenye tuko nazo za digital. Not like that one. It was an analog phone. Let me just call it that way. And he bought the line at 5,000 shillings. So you can imagine. But now, look at the environment. These people realized that these people many Kenyans cannot afford phones. Many Kenyans cannot afford what we call the lines. And they started reducing the price, adapting to the environment. Right now, as we speak right now, you can even get a phone with 500 shillings. Some are even being given for free as a discount. You go to Jumia, you buy something, and then you're given a phone for free. Something like that. So Safaricom has had to adapt to our needs, not us to adapt to their needs, for it to thrive in the market. While their competitor, Airtel, decided, no, we will stay like that. Now, what is happening to Airtel? Because they did not apply the adaptive strategy. Sometimes look at the environment, adapt to the environment, not the other way around. Then the last one we are looking at is what we call interpretative strategy. And when you talk about interpretative strategy, it emphasizes the ideas of strategy as a means by which organization seeks to manage their relationship with the environment. So from this perspective, the formulation of strategy will be determined to a large degree by the way in which organizational culture and individual value system affect the management perception of the situation. Interpretative strategy is, for example, you have to know the needs of the people. You have to know the needs of the people You have to know the wants of the people, interpret what they need, and then you establish your business. For example, you can visit a community and you realize there is poor sanitation. They do not have hospitals. They do not have technical institutions. Then you interpret, why are these people behaving like this? Why are people not going to colleges? Then you can start your college through interpreting what is happening in that environment. So interpretative strategy is simply you interpret what is on the ground, and then you do what? You try as much as possible to satisfy those customers or those publics. It's as simple as that. You can see this last statement. You are saying that the organization existence is seen as relying on its ability to attract enough individuals to cooperate in mutual beneficial exchange relationship. Yes, let's say, for example, you go to Garissa. You have realized, number one, there is poor sanitation. There are no schools. This place is a desert. Or so on and so forth. There is no electricity. You are an organization. You have come in. Then you try as much as possible to come up with goods and services that are going to benefit you, the organization, and the publics. Any question? You're going to read on integrating different approaches, because you can integrate those approaches. You can integrate interpretative strategy with adaptive and with also linear. Yes, Silvanus.
Okay, I'll take you back to, I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so I'll take you back to strategy. So could you put it into context? What's the difference between strategy and policy? Because there seems to be a very thin line in between.
Strategy and what?
Policy.
Policy.
Yes.
Now, when you talk about a strategy, okay, there is something we call, when I was doing my strategic public relations, there are things we call tactics. There are tactics, there are strategies, and there are what we call policies. Policies, we can say that it is part of the strategy. It's part of the strategy, because for you to achieve a certain thing, you need to have policy are simply what we call rules and regulations of doing something. Like, for example, we can have human resource policy. Those policies, they are the ones that the organization follows for them to maybe acquire an employee, something like that. Policy is simply a document that is written and that is followed by an organization. You have to follow those rules that have been written there. For example, if you want to acquire a new employee, there is a policy that you have to follow. For example, you want to acquire new products and services. We have also what we call procurement policies. For example, there is we have human resource policy, we have procurement policy. As far as universities are concerned, we also have what we call academic policies. That for you to reach where you are as a student, there are what we call rules, or there are set of rules that we are following. There are set of procedures that we are following for you to exit successfully and graduate as a student. Now, those are policies. Strategies are simply what we call what can I say? Those are not rules. Strategies are not rules. Strategies are simply ways in which we should do things to achieve a certain goal, ways in which we should do things so that we achieve a certain goal. But as far as policies are concerned, we have very different policies in an organization. We have very different policies in an organization. So I hope I've answered you.
All right, so strategy is much more concerned with the direction in which human and physical resources are deployed to and applied to achieve the company goals. Is this correct?
Yes, for example, when you talk about strategies, maybe we want to do what? To get, maybe as a school, as a university, we want to get 3,000 students by the end of this semester. So then we have to come up with a strategy, and the strategy, they work for that particular period. Once you are done and the strategy worked, you can decide to do away with the strategy. But policies remain that way. Policies remain that way. So strategies, you can, like for example, a student, you cannot have a policy as a student. You can only have strategies on how you're going to achieve your goals. That is it. I think that is how I can put it.
Thank you very much.
You can, I'm looking at the definition of a policy from the internet, and they're saying a policy is a course of principles of action. These are just principles of action or proposed by organizations or individuals. These are policies of actions. But strategies, they are not policies of actions. Strategies, they are meant to achieve a certain objective. Yeah, that is it. So we continue unless there is another question. So we have different levels of strategy. We have 3 levels of strategies. We have corporate strategy, business or competitive strategy, and operational or functional strategy. So we start with corporate strategy. And the corporate strategy, they are concerned with what type of business a company as a whole should be in, and is therefore concerned with decisions of scope. A corporate strategy. When you hear of something like corporate, think of an organization as a whole. When you hear of something like corporate image, corporate identity, you're talking about the organization as a whole. So when you talk about corporate strategy, it is concerned with what type of business a company as a whole should be in. Which kind of a business? Like for example, Zetech University is a service rendering entity, specifically education. So that is a corporate strategy for Zetech University and many other universities. Corporate strategies may also be concerned with decisions regarding the acquisition of business or with the allocating of resources between company and different businesses. Then we also have that corporate strategy is also likely to be concerned with questions about financial structures of the company as a whole. For example, corporate strategy addressing issues which their nature affect the totality of their organization. So when you're talking about corporate strategy, it's all about strategies that relate to the organization as a whole. Those that operate at lower level of the firm, again, you're told that they do not have proper vantage point to make the difficult trade. Anyway, you're going to look at the corporate strategy. Then there is what we call the business. Oyamo, what are you saying?
Okay,
Your hand
can
is up.
you please share your screen, please?
Oh,
Can't see it.
You can't see anything.
Yeah.
There it is. I hope you can now see it. Can you see my screen now?
We can't see the notes that you're talking
Okay.
about.
Not yet.
I hope now you can see it.
Yes, now it's seen.
So we have
Yes.
talked about what we call corporate strategy. Kindly go through corporate strategy. Remember, I am also trying to rush as far as time is concerned, so that I can give you enough time to do what we call the activities. We also have business or competitive strategy. And when you talk about business or competitive strategy, it is concerned with determining how the company should compete in a particular market. So these strategies, they determine how a company should compete in a particular market. So when you talk about competitive strategy, it's more likely concerned with various business units. It's concerned with various business units. Like you will realize that it is concerned with unit to do with finance, marketing, maybe for example, procurement, and so on and so forth. So here, when you're talking about business or competitive strategy, decision may focus on a particular segment of the market. You are a university, but you are focusing, it's not about the whole organization, but you are focusing on a particular segment of the market. Maybe you're focusing on the community, or maybe you're focusing on the shareholders or stakeholders. So when you talk about business or competitive strategy, they focus particularly on particular segments of the market. And mostly they focus on what we call competitors or competition. That's why it is called business or competitive strategy. Then from there, we have operational or functional strategy. And this level is concerned with how various functions of the organization contribute to the success of other levels of strategy. You are looking at finance, you're looking at marketing, you're looking at procurement, you are looking at public relations department. How do they contribute towards success of other levels of the strategy? So such contribution can be extremely important. For example, how the organization seeks to be competitive. So decision about the quality of products manufactured, the type of personnel applied can actually be critically important to an organization's success. So in other words, we are looking at different sections. Like if you're a manufacturing industry, we are also looking at maybe, for example, the type of products that we manufacture. We are looking at maybe, for example, the people that we employ, because even the kind of people that you employ in an organization can be a functional strategy. Do we employ professional people? Do we employ Form 4 dropouts? Do we employ people who are qualified? And so on and so forth. So it can be one of the operational or functional strategy. So we focus on various functions of the organization and how they contribute to the success of other levels of strategy. So I'll stop there. The summary, you will read it on your own to allow you or to give you more time to go and do the activities. Unless there is a question, I will stop at that point. If there is no question, let's go to what we call activities. Number one, I have unleashed today's notes. You can download those notes. You can download today's notes, topic 3 notes. And the activity of the day is this one. From the PR perspective or from a public relations perspective, to what extent are the levels of strategy mutually exclusive? From a PR perspective, to what extent are the levels of strategy mutually exclusive? That is, and then post your discussion in the provided discussion forum. Then from there, we have our discussion forum. It's already open. And we also have our quiz 3. The quiz 3 is already opened for you. Again, I'm going to share something on WhatsApp. I will share something on WhatsApp, how you respond to discussion forum. Because I've come to realize that people respond to their colleagues or to other students. Wewe badala will respond to my forum. You are responding to your friend's forum, which is not right. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to share a clip on WhatsApp for this particular, to show you how you're supposed to respond to the discussion forum that I usually put there. Again, there is this thing, assignment 1. Assignment 1 is there, and I can see that only 9 people have done that assignment. You have 7 days, 7 hours. You have 7 days, 7 hours. Kindly do that particular forum, because if you, that particular assignment, because we know most of the time issues to do with school fees, they are dealt with when the month is beginning, the beginning of a new month. So my friend, don't let that time expire. Then you tell me I had an issue with school fees. I could not access the portal. My question to you will be, when did I post those assignments? 2 weeks ago. And you're telling me after 2 weeks that you had issues with us with the school fees. So the best thing to do is make sure that you do those assignments. We have 9 people who have done the assignment. Kindly do the assignment. Don't wait until the last minute hapo ndio unatafuta excuse ambayo haiko. So that assignment, when it expires me, I'm not going to open it again. Today's password for the register is this one. I'm sharing it here. Password, I'm sharing it there. I've already shared. You can take an initiative to do what? To share to the rest. So as I said, I'm sharing that video as we speak right now, so that you know how to respond to the discussion forums. Acha nikushare saa hii. I've already shared. I've already shared the video. So kindly go through the video. Upitie hiyo video vizuri, ujue vile unafaa ku contribute. It's taking time, eh? It's taking time. Ujue vile unafaa ku contribute to a discussion forum. So with those few remarks, I will end my class and allow you time to go and do the activities that have been put on the portal. So enjoy your day.